Dr. Brad, thank you for coming on the podcast. This is gonna be like a normal conversation. It was like a 2-hour. It was like a 2-hour drive, right?
You tell me where I should have this.
No, that's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, it catches the audio. Yeah, so don't worry. Thank you for coming. Well, to start it off, your book on exposing Lyme and chronic illness, I started reading a few pages on it, and I like how you quoted what's that? Hippocrates. He says all disease stems from the gut, or all disease starts from the gut.
Yes.
And with modern diets today, I mean, we don't really reinforce our gut to fight off any type of illness, right?
That's correct. My wife ran into a website a little while ago, and I haven't looked at it yet, but this company does fecal transplants. They're offering a crazy amount of money for clean feces because less than 1% of our population has feces worthy enough to be able to use as a transplant to fix people's guts. There's a better way to do that, but that's all linked to our diet.
Okay, and I would like to start off more kind of like why you started this, because your book also relates back to kind of like your childhood and what you went through. Yeah.
I didn't realize what caused what was going on, but I was 5 years old, woke up in the middle of the night with just gut-wrenching pain, and I've got an extremely high pain threshold.
Really?
Yeah, it's not low at all.
Okay.
I had some issues going on a while ago where pain would hit me, and it was so bad I was going into shock. But I'm still walking around. I'm still interacting. I couldn't sleep, but my pain threshold's extremely high.
But whenever you say pain, is it like pain in the stomach?
Yeah, my gut was it was churning. It was on fire. I did not know what was going on. And that was my first visit to a hospital.
At 5?
At 5.
Okay.
Middle of the night. I don't know how many times I ended up going back. It was multiple. They said I had inflamed intestines. No idea why. No idea what caused it. They did some weird thing, some kind of suppository thing, and, sent me home. And I'm thinking at 5 years of age, if this is, reflecting back, if this is my experience, I'm sure that everybody else's experience is very much the same. They have all of these different issues going on in life with no understanding of why, what's causing it. Just here, take this, whatever it is, and the approach of medicine and alternative medicine isn't much different.
Really?
Yeah. They think there's a pill A for symptom A, a pill B for symptom B, pill C for symptom C, and it makes no sense. It really makes no sense. It doesn't have any effectiveness.
Yeah.
There's a research article in the British Journal of Medicine that stated that only 20 to 25% of what medical doctors do has any clinical effect whatsoever.
Wow.
Right. Now, I was told that...
Is it because they follow what they've been told, or they don't necessarily want to understand the science of the body?
Okay. So we'll split in a couple of different ways with that.
Yeah.
All the healthcare professions basically get the same science, same classes. So I went to an insanely intense school, and we had 2 medical administrations audit our school, and they said, "You guys, it's too much, too intense, back off. You're going to burn your students out." Okay. It was insane. We averaged, I think, 33 units per term, peaked out at 37. It never got below 28. You know, that's an average of 100 hours a week of school.
Wow.
You know, involved in that. But, you know, the point of that is we all get the same science.
Mm-hmm.
Medical schools are subsidized by the pharmaceutical industry. And the American Journal of Medicine printed an article in the early 20s. I don't remember what year it is right now. But it basically stated that we haven't changed our medical education since 1910.
From what it is today?
Yeah, 1810, sorry. Over 100 years of doing the same thing. And they openly confess that all they teach is acute illness. And it doesn't leave their students prepared to address 75% of the problems that walk through the door, chronic illness. No healthcare institution teaches the realities of chronic illness. That's a mind blower.
Yeah.
75% of the people walking around, that's what their problem is.
Because they'll walk into hospitals, but they'll just walk out not finding the solution to their problem. You
cannot gain health through the avenues of health care.
But most of us believe that.
Right. All you get is management of symptoms. They have no belief in curing. Like you take the greatest medical experts on Lyme disease. They have no belief you can cure it. We can get rid of it in a matter of weeks.
Explain to me, what is Lyme disease in itself? Because you said you grew up in like the countryside of the United States. You were outside a lot. What is Lyme disease? Like, because I think from the book it referred back to I think you get it from a tick.
Okay. What causes it is we have this great amount of misinformation going on in our world today.
Absolutely.
Lord allowed me to get into Eastern Europe and Russia as the Berlin Wall was falling down.
You were there at that time.
I was there.
Mm-hmm.
We did not know when we set the trip up. We were going to smuggle Bibles in and do ministry out in the streets and stuff like that. And we did not know. The day that we left America, the Berlin Wall came down. We landed in Frankfurt on day 2, mm-hmm. and we went through Checkpoint Charlie on day 3.
You were stuck there at the airport for a while then, right?
It was... it was a few-week trip, and I've been back there a few times. Mm-hmm. We spent close to a month and a half in the middle of Siberia a couple of years later, and a couple of years after that I went back into Siberia again. But the most appalling revelation I got in the streets of Russia back in 1989
mm-hmm.
was that America had the most well-oiled propaganda machine in the world, and we pay for it. It's the media that everybody plugs into.
What do you mean by well-oiled and we pay for it? Like, we pay for it as in, like, we consume it, or?
We consume it. It's primarily through TV.
Okay. And now with social media,
there's no check and balance with social media. I mean, you look, social media has allowed this cancel culture to sweep through every aspect of life, where you can socially destroy somebody that you don't even know, you've never met. You just create a slander campaign and people jump on.
Yes, that is very fateful for whoever it targets.
Yeah, and it is really, really corrupt.
it doesn't allow also the freedom to speak on.
You can never confront your accusers because they might not even be real. My wife knows people who've dated fictitious characters online.
Wow.
They're totally made up.
Yeah.
You know, and there's just no way to be able to confront your accusers and bring a case out publicly.
Yes. No. Absolutely.
You know, it's evil. It just is. And you know, the basic tenet of justice is to be able to confront your accusers and bring the truth out.
Yeah, and we're at a point now where we don't really want to ever confront it.
There's a rising tide of people who are seeing what's going on and saying we're done with this, and they're jumping ship and they're understanding what's going on. But you know, so we, you know, when you take that, we get back into the educational system. Time magazine saw that article from British Journal of Medicine and printed a cover article called Medical Guesswork. And
Medical guesswork.
Right. And it's all based off of that article, that research in British Journal of Medicine, that only 20-25% of what doctors do has any clinical beneficial effect. Now, that's not curing. That's not resolving. That's reducing the symptomatic picture. And that is true for all of the healthcare professions.
Just the same way you said that the revelation was made to you that we feed this machine, we also feed in the machine of the diet that they keep on feeding us, right?
When you look at traditional diets, people think eating healthy is expensive. You know, I grew up in the West Coast, a very ethnically diverse area.
Mm-hmm.
The primary diet of Asia is rice and beans.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Latin America, it's corn and beans. But the corn that they use traditionally is nothing like what we have today. Commercial corn in our country, the issue of GMO food isn't that the GMO is so bad. The plants are so weak they can't survive without herbicides and pesticides.
The plants are so weak that they can't survive.
Right, without herbicides and pesticides. They don't feed the soil the nutrients to make plants healthy. They feed the plants, which is an insane thing. It doesn't work.
Oh, I never understood that. Okay.
So the soil has microbes inside of the soil that convert all the nutrients into assimilable things that the roots of the plants can take up. And the plants give 20% of their energy back through the roots to feed these microbes, as microbes are converting all the nutrients in the soil to feed the roots.
Oh, so the same way that they take, they give back.
Right.
Okay.
We have exactly the same thing going on inside of our gut.
Mm.
Our gut, you know, the lining of the gut, it's only one cell layer thick. So it's not tough like the skin. It's one cell layer thick. And if you hold your fingers up in front of your face, these fingers represent on the gut wall what's called microvilli. There's little projections that stick out on all these cells. They increase the surface area of the gut close to 400 times.
But those four layers, what are they? You said microvilli.
They're called microvilli, but it's only one cell layer thick all the way around.
And all of them have different functions.
No. The function's really simple. The food passes above these. The microvilli release a mucus, and inside the mucus you have these microbes that live, billions of them. The food never touches the microvilli for absorption. The microbes go up and do all the digestion, grab the nutrients and bring it back down to the microvilli.
Okay.
Exact same thing going on in our gut that goes on in the soil.
And after it absorbs the nutrients, what does it give back then?
The microvilli give the mucus and secretions to keep the microbes alive. It's called the flora or the microbiota. And it gives a place to hide it. Because when you have inflammation, it's like you roll your fingers and you make a fist and you just see your knuckles. That's all that's left in an inflamed gut. No more microvilli. The surface area is a fraction of what it should be.
So that's why you need that mucus.
Right. There's no mucus to keep the flora in. And the good stuff washes out in the toilet, and that's when all the pathogens grow.
All diseases, and it allows it, right?
Right. That is the root cause of all chronic illness, is that right there. Anything that causes a chronic inflammatory response in the gut wall makes a microvilli atrophy and go down from fingers sticking out to looking at your knuckles, and that can happen in 24 hours.
Is it affected by our diet then, like by what
Your
we're
diet,
feeding it?
it's affected by all kinds of things, and in the book I write what I believe the real mechanism of that happens.
Okay.
Because you can take antibiotics, and some of the strong broad spectrum antibiotics like they treat Lyme disease with. Mm-hmm. One dose will wipe out the good flora in your gut. One dose.
Wow, and how many doses do they normally
Typically 2-3 a day for sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes years.
Wow. And that would probably cause some, if you're affecting it that much, then it would cause you to, like, recovery time would also, for your gut to get back to normal.
It can't heal on its own. That's our real specialty. That's my real specialty, is healing guts. Because with that, you can address every chronic illness problem you can think of. It all links back to it. But you think about the things that cause chronic inflammation in there. You got antibiotics. It'll destroy the flora in one dose. Bad ones. Some of the lighter ones that take a few doses.
Okay.
But anyway, chronic stress, steroids, food intolerances, heavy metals, you name it. Anything that causes inflammation will cause that to go on. So we go back to the staple diets of what the world was. Corn, GMO corn, cannot grow without these herbicides and pesticides. People hear about Roundup. Glyphosate is what Roundup came from. It was introduced as a drain cleaner. It chelates, binds up minerals, pulled them out of clogged pipes, and opened the pipes up. That's what Roundup started to be promoted for its use.
Then it got converted into
one of the main herbicides used all over the world. It does the same thing in the soil. It chelates, it binds up the minerals so the plants starve and they can't survive. It does the same thing in our gut and in our bodies. It binds up, chelates the minerals, so your immune system doesn't function, no metabolic system functions. It binds up the key minerals to function inside the body.
Our body doesn't get a chance to absorb any of the good minerals or anything like that.
Even if it does, it converts them into unusable forms.
Oh, okay.
So, and you look at corn, the staple of Central and South America. They use not only glyphosate, but atrazine. If you look at the research on what problems physiologically glyphosate and Roundup cause, Roundup is 4 times stronger than glyphosate. They put a surfactant on it. Surfactant's like soap. It breaks up the protective mechanisms of the membranes in things. Now, all your cell walls and cell membranes, the outside coating and the coating on all the organelles are packed full of organelles just like we are. 95% of those membranes are oils. So these surfactants just break up those, weaken those so they can't work properly, and they get in 4 times the effect with that. Atrazine is a primary herbicide used. Glyphosate is a post-emergent. So after your weeds sprout, the glyphosates will knock those out because it's taken up through the leaves. Atrazine is a pre-emergent, stops things from sprouting. It's at least 10 times worse than glyphosate.
What are the causes to the body then?
You can't find an end through it. You do a Google Scholar search, 3 pages later you haven't even touched it. Everything that it does.
Wow.
It destroys your flora, causes wicked inflammation inside of the gut. As soon as the gut's wall starts to atrophy, you get all these inflammatory holes that blow through it. And I got some pictures. There's a picture even in the book that I wrote, Exposing Lyme and Chronic Illness, a picture of electron micrograph of holes blown in the surface of the atrophied microvilli. They're just little bumps.
Wow.
That's what leaky gut is. And when you look at our immune system, 50% of our immune system's in the gut wall, just underneath the lining. You got.
And for that to have holes, that's a major.
Yeah, it overloads the immune system. It can't deal with it. We've got all these checks and balances inside of us. We've got 4 detox organs. Most people think there's only one. The microbiota, the flora, all the microbes in the gut. That's your first one.
Okay.
The gut wall, that 1 cell layer thick, in the small intestine and the colon are your next 2. All the blood that returns off the gut goes straight into the liver. Your liver's your 4th one. And the toxic introduction into our bodies should only come primarily through the gut, and it should stay in this closed loop of gut to liver, and the liver dumps it back into the gut, stay inside of that loop till it processes everything. But with the chelation of these minerals, key minerals that do the detoxification pathways, it shuts it all down.
It blocks it?
Yeah, you can't detox without the minerals that are chelated.
Okay.
And so what happens, liver gets overwhelmed. Those things spill out systemically, go throughout the entire body, and the rest of the body has no detox systems. So the immune system tries to deal with it. It's too overwhelmed. It's not efficient detoxer at all. And it depresses your immune system, and you're just a sitting duck for anything else that comes down the road.
We become vulnerable to just about anything, right?
Pretty much anything.
And so does you restoring gut health go case by case, or are there common reasons why we all have some type of gut health issue?
You asked a bigger question than what you realized. Almost everybody in healthcare uses what's called protocols, which is a generic system of approaching things.
Okay, yeah. The protocol would be like a normal way of treating everyone, right?
Right. It's a universal, normal way. Medicine uses the Merck manuals, little red book, signs, symptoms, lab tests, tells you this is what it is and this is the way you deal with it.
Protocol would also be like the nurse coming in and then the doctor and...
Well, that's how they determine those things.
Okay.
But something that kind of blew me away, and I think this will blow your listeners away too. I was at a conference quite a few years back, and we had a head administrator of a research hospital there talking about an average medical doctor visit.
Okay.
Healthcare insurance has destroyed medicine, that and the educational system. So he describes the average visit. Doctor comes up to the door, grabs the chart out of the door, starts flipping through it. In 6 seconds, he's formulating his diagnosis. He's not even walked in the room. Within 15 seconds, they already have their diagnosis. The next 10, 12 seconds, they figured out what they're going to do. They walk in the door, and all the rest of the time they spend with you is fluff. It's just to pacify you.
So the questions that they normally ask, they already made up their mind before that.
Right.
Why?
Because that's what insurance has forced everything to do. Most people don't realize with insurance, you used to have these checks and balances, and many, many years ago, we were nurses who looked at cases and charts and weighed stuff. Now it's statisticians. People have no education in healthcare, nothing at all. It's just numbers game. And they're the ones that tell the doctors what to do. Doctors have become technicians who are directed by statisticians on what they can and cannot do. That's healthcare.
But the bigger problem is that healthcare keeps on not healthcare, the insurance companies want it to be like this.
Yeah, they get paid by the most evil way you possibly can think of. They get a percentage of the disbursements that they pay out, which...
From like insurance death benefits?
From the administrative side of insurance gets paid a percentage of what disbursements they send out. So that gives them a motivation to find the most expensive care with the least amount of stuff.
Oh, they get paid. Like if I'm going to give you a cancer pill that's going to stop your cancer for a bit, like let's put CML, right? If that pill is $3,000 a month, that's the most expensive pill. I get a percentage out of that.
Yeah, some pills are over $9,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
So give you the most expensive type of healthcare with the least amount of product.
Interaction. Yeah.
And interaction.
Right. So it's mind blower. It's not what people think.
That is insane.
So, some of this seems like it's an aside, but this is the problem. And you asked, so what's my approach? We have a signature approach that people give lip service to, but they don't have the tools to do it.
Okay.
We only work with people on an individual basis. And we've had several people come in from a same family with very similar things going on, and each one needs a different approach to their care.
So my question was pretty, we can't all have the same protocol.
Absolutely not. And this is what everybody's getting. Doesn't matter whether you're talking alternative medicine. Functional medicine was started by a bunch of clinical nutrition chiropractors who had some very innovative diagnostic tools. We're making just a tremendous impact in people's health. And their board wanted them to get some continuing education to justify that. So they searched around, they found this guy that had a PhD in biology by the name of Dr. Jeffrey Bland. Mm-hmm. They invited him out to Minneapolis, and they started having these closed-door meetings that expanded out, and that became the springboard for functional medicine. Dr. Bland openly admits The chiropractors taught me way more than I taught them, but I had the degree to sign the ticket. And he's called the father of functional medicine, which started with clinical tools that are outside of medicine.
Okay. What are these tools?
You look at diagnostic tools. You basically have 4 different types of diagnostic tools out there.
In regular medicine or functional medicine?
In all healthcare.
Okay.
You have lab tests, which everybody's seduced to think is the way to go. The
lab tests as in blood lab tests, urine tests, any type of lab test?
Yeah, any type. You look at what started the lab test was Louis Pasteur, the father of the germ theory. He's one who studied microbes and developed microscopes and was very innovative in his day, and he spent his entire life studying microbes, believing that the microbes were the key to disease. And if you could kill the microbes, you could eradicate disease. Lab tests are all based on finding those microbes, whatever it is, that's causing disease.
Okay.
To eradicate the disease. By the time Louis Pasteur was coming to the end of his life, he had this revelation. He had a contemporary by the name of Bernard who was studying the constitution, the inner workings of the body, and how that affects disease.
Okay.
And Louis Pasteur's looking back at his life and Bernard's work, and he says, Bernard was right. I've wasted my life studying the wrong thing. The germ is nothing. The soil is everything.
He was studying just a consequence of what the body was like. So we have to find where that microbe is coming from.
No, we have to find out what gave it opportunity to grow inside of the body.
Okay. Wow, that must be really impactful. Like you come to the end of your life and find out that you're researching the wrong thing.
It's not just research, but whatever we dedicated our life to. When I was in the last trip into Russia, Siberia, we went with we met a bunch of senior ministers from the West Coast out in LaGuardia Airport in New York. We met them and just their attitude and their heart, and it just wasn't right. And the Lord let me and another guy know that the purpose of our trip were not going to be realized. And as I have this dialogue with the Lord in the airport, it's like, did I just turn around and go home? I mean, why go? I'm the only one here that's not getting paid to go. So I'm losing on 2 sides. And if the trip's not going to be fruitful, why should I go? And he goes, no, I want you to go. I just want you to realize why you think you're going isn't why you're going.
Okay. What did you find out?
And it was interesting. One of the senior ministers from over in the West Coast came to me and head apostle that I traveled with. And he opened up his heart and he says, I was the senior minister in this mega church, big congregation, 2,500 people are going through my doors a week. Had 10 associates underneath me. And I was getting toward the end of my tenure there, getting close to time to retire, and I looked around to see who I could pass the torch to. And I realized at that moment I had 10 hirelings and not one son in my associates. I realized at that point in time that I had failed the Good Commission. I'd wasted over 35 years of my life doing what I thought was ministry, and I was wrong. I hit the floor, I was on my face, I just wept in front of the Lord. Until I got this revelation, I asked him, said, Lord, I'm going to ask you for one more thing, just one more thing in the rest of my life. You give me this one thing, and I'll never ask you for anything else. Give me 3 good young men I can pour the rest of my life into. Give me that. I'll be satisfied. He spent his whole life doing ministry. He thought he was going to get this good and faithful servant welcome into the kingdom of heaven, and he realized he failed. This is what most of us do in so many aspects of life. We go about life blindly thinking what we're doing is going to give us these rewards that are carrot on the stick because the way we're going about them is just wrong.
How would we go about them then?
Well, you look at the food supply. The industry's not going to change unless people force the industry to change. If people just quit buying commercial garbage.
But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
It happens one person at a time. You can't educate a whole group of people in a collective whole and bring this collective change, but you can educate people one at a time who force industry to make those changes.
But like you said, it's such a well-oiled machine that even today, like even if we ask for like organic, it's not, the things that they're feeding us is not organic.
Not only that, but the organic industry isn't organic also. They're using the same stuff the commercial people are using.
So they'll just come up with new tactics, would they not?
The best place you can get your food is a local farmer's market where you can dialogue with the people and you find out what their growing techniques are. And one of the biggest questions to ask them, what are you doing to make your plants healthy? If they're feeding the plants, they can't possibly be healthy. If they're feeding the soil, you got a good chance.
And that's a good way to put it because I did not understand how that worked at all.
Most people don't.
I didn't.
I got a young man as a friend who just went through a bunch of schooling to try and do soil diagnostics, and he doesn't have enough understanding of like a 60,000-foot view level to make that work really well. But, you take the nutrients in a soil, most of the minerals are going to be in rock form, crystalline form. Plants can't take that up. The microbes convert those rock form crystalline minerals into phosphates. They chelate it, add a phosphate to it. Plants can take that up right away. And they put that in their cell wall and all that, but they chelate that in and add on amino acids. We can't absorb rock form or phosphate form, but we can absorb the amino acid chelates. And you start to see this cycle of life in all of these things, that if people don't know that simple basic truth, they don't know really how to find good healthy food. It's only the people who are feeding the soil that can give you healthy soil. And you're looking at different doctors and different people who really got into health, there's a consensus of those that are in the forefront of things. If you're ever involved, really invested in people's health, sooner or later you're going to get involved and educated into the plant life cycle.
If functional medicine is aware of this, if functional medicine has all these good techniques to be able to restore our health, why isn't it commercialized a lot more, just like these hospitals are?
Okay, so we'll get back to the diagnostic techniques, and this will make sense.
Okay.
So the lab tests, they're basically going off Louis Pasteur's idea, because it's easy to sell.
Easy to sell.
Right.
Okay.
You can tell people you're sick because you got this microbe growing.
Okay.
And there's no personal investment. There's no personal requirement for you to do anything, change anything.
You said there was 4 ways, right?
Right. When you look at the lab test for Lyme disease, the best Lyme labs in the world said 10 years ago on their website, our tests are only 0 to 20% accurate if the lab sample is taken in the first 1 to 2 weeks of infection of the bulk of the diseases, of the bulk of the tests. Western blot, you can got a window of 6 to 8 weeks. You pass that and you have no accuracy whatsoever.
Wow.
Now the best Lyme lab in the world says that their lab tests are not a diagnosis. That's a quote.
They're not a
They are
diagnosis.
not a diagnosis. Hey, you look at the same thing for Candida. Candida is what set the stage inside of the gut, mucous membranes, women's reproductive tract to start all this stuff. It's the number one predisposing factor to Lyme disease, and it's the number one complication. Candida is there before they get Lyme disease, and it's there long after you get rid of it.
It never goes away.
No, you can get it to go away. That's really my specialty. Lyme disease is easy. It's really easy.
Okay.
You can get rid of Lyme disease in weeks. It's just all the things that set the stage to allow it to grow. That's what takes the real work. And almost nobody's doing that. Okay, so you look at that. That's one set of diagnostics.
Yeah, lab tests.
You have dark field microscopy. It's looking at live blood through a microscope doesn't have a backlight in it. And you can see all these things swimming around in it and all that, and you can see all these interactions going on in blood. Mm-hmm. I was at a Lyme forum once where one of the top researchers on Lyme disease was there, and I believe he's passed away since then from Lyme disease. His name was Tom Greer. And they were talking about a bunch of things, and they brought up the issue of dark field microscopy. And he says, the problem with dark field microscopy, Lyme disease, is you got 3 different shapes of bacteria primarily. You got the cocci, which is a little round ball. It's like a ping pong ball, but it's really, really super small. Mm-hmm. You got things that look more like a grain of rice. They're cylinders, rounded ends on them. And you got corkscrews.
Okay, the ones that are able to travel up the bloodstream.
Right. Yeah, and the corkscrew, the Lyme bacteria, can swim twice as fast as our fastest immune cells.
That to me was like very impactful. I was like, wow.
Right. So you have corkscrews that create Lyme disease, corkscrews that create syphilis, and it really looks like Lyme disease is a hot rod of syphilis. Mm-hmm. But you got corkscrews that are benign. They don't cause anything. They're just there. And the problem with the dark field is you can see this corkscrew go through, but you don't know what it is. The only way you can identify it is to let those slides dry and use stain that's specific for different microbes. And the stain will identify what the specific bacteria is.
Oh, because you could see it in the moment, but you won't know how to differentiate whether it's just there or it's actually something bad.
Right. You don't know if it's syphilis, you don't know if it's Lyme disease, you don't know if it's nothing.
Okay.
You have no idea.
Okay.
And with that discussion, mm-hmm. It ended the discussion because I get it. Mm-hmm. I'm not invested in those types of things. I know people that are. But you see something going through, you don't know what it is. You're making guesses. And that's the problem with all the diagnostic stuff, is you're guessing. The third type of diagnostics is electrodiagnostic issues, which can be pretty accurate on what they tell you is going on, but it can't tell you the extent nor the cause. And its application is not very accurate.
What are electrodiagnostics?
You hook people up with these microcurrent things that go through computers, mm-hmm. and they check with all these different frequency things, and it comes up with an idea of what's going on inside of you.
Okay. But they can't.
They can't give you the cause or the extent, just that it's there.
Okay.
And the last form of testing is which one functional medicine started off using was muscle testing. You look at the double-blind studies, are 95 to 97% accurate, provided a few things are going on.
Muscle study.
Yeah, and essentially, muscle testing, it's doing its own electrodiagnostic issues. When we look at quantum physics and we look at physical matter, years ago, Albert Einstein came up with his theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. And he had a contemporary who was a medical doctor who got his education over in Europe, came over to America, and they wouldn't allow him to practice because they didn't want to accept his degree. So he did other really creative things. Him and Albert Einstein were close friends. And Dr. Reams asked Albert Einstein, so what's that mean to the common man? And, I get this vision of Albert basically turning, sticking a hand on his shoulder, leaning in, looking him straight in the eye, and says, that's for you to figure out. I added the first part, but Albert Einstein said that's for you to figure out. And he did. He really did. When you look at E equals mc squared, E is energy, m is mass, c is the speed of light. And if you know algebra, energy is a function of light and mass. Okay. But if we divide the c squared off the mass side, mass is a function of energy and light.
Okay.
Okay, and if you wanna leave the light over here, light's a function of energy over mass. And you go, what's all that about? Well, when you get into quantum physics, quarks, the building parts of atoms, they're electromagnetic spins of light. And this is one of the biggest confirmations of God creating the heavens and the earth and everything that there is. Because you take in absolute darkness, mass doesn't change. Where'd the light come from?
But how does that give into the fact that God created that then?
Because the only thing, when you look at the creation story, he created light before he created the spheres that give light. Okay. He made day and night before he created the stars and the moon and the sun and all that, a day before. You look at his nature, it describes God is light. It explicitly states that over and over. He lent some of his nature to make all the physical universe.
Oh, I didn't know that EMC squared would go that deep.
Most people don't. But this is how my mind works.
No, I like the explanation, though. I do. Yeah. I like the explanation.
And when you look at an atom, you have these electrical charges on the outside. Most people think it's just electrons, but it can be positrons also. Depends on isotopes. Things shift around and flop and all that. Mm-hmm. And as these things, it doesn't go in circles, but it does little ice cream cones, and it skips across the nucleus, and it does things like this. And what it ends up making is all of these atoms are electromagnetic pumps.
Okay.
And each atom has its own different electromagnetic frequency.
What does that mean to us?
Well, what it means, essentially, when you look at a telephone, it takes your voice, it converts it into electromagnetic waves, mm-hmm. travels either through the airways or through the wires. It's more through the airways now than it was wires.
Yeah.
And on the other end, it converts it back into voice.
Okay,
so
yes.
What muscle testing does is it tests the responses of the electromagnetic frequencies of the body in every function that you can possibly have, so that You can tell whether organ systems are strong or they're weak. You can tell what causes those and what resolves those.
Is it because you are putting something in and then you're getting a response out of it? That's why it's accurate?
Essentially, I could show you with what you have on your table your own response to that. And it's a mind blower.
What do you mean?
Look, I'll just give you a small demonstration of some muscle testing. Okay? I'm going to come over there and we'll both be on the same mic.
Okay. I'm coming.
Okay. Okay if I touch you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Put your elbow against your side like that.
Okay.
Hold your arm like that. I'm going to push this way, you push that way, and don't let me move your arm.
Okay, yeah. If you could step a little here so we could record it. Okay, so.
Okay. So if I do this, I'm checking your thyroid, and that's pretty strong. There's just a little bit of a weakness there.
Okay.
I'm going to turn your arm in like this.
Okay.
I'm going to stick a hand here and I'm going to pull up this way.
Okay.
Don't let me pull it. Okay, that's your liver. It's fairly weak, and there's a reason why.
Wait, you could tell by that?
That every single organ system ties into one specific muscle. When we're made inside the uterus, there's something that develops the primitive nervous system called the notochord. And everything, every organ, every muscle, every bone, your skin, all that pulls a nerve supply off that notochord.
Off every organ, like...
Every single organ, every single muscle, they all pull off their own supply. People have studied those, mapped those out, and tested those to find out which specific muscle group ties into which organ. That
is amazing.
Right. And this is what the functional medicine guys used to do. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they did all that. So we just checked out 2 organs.
My liver's
generally, if the liver's weak,
mm-hmm.
the thyroid's going to be weak too. Now, that was just checking you with no influence at all. If you take this, the electromagnetics of what's in here is going to affect you. I'm going to have you hold this with that hand right there.
Okay.
Put your elbow against your side again, hold right there, and I'm going to pull across. You notice it's considerably weaker. I'm going to try this. I can move that with one finger now.
Wow, okay.
The elbow straight, hold here.
Okay.
And that's a lot weaker too. If we take this away, have you hold your water. Hold here.
Okay.
Much stronger. I can't move
What? That makes... That is...
Hold this here. Keep that against you. Push out. Now, I'm putting all my weight on that and I can't move it.
Because of the water?
Because the electromagnetics of what the water's made of harmonizes with yours. And as it harmonizes, it makes you stronger. So that is the system of diagnostics that functional medicine started with. They've been seduced by the medical people who came in who liked what their effect was into quitting doing that and using lab tests.
Because lab tests are easier to sell, you pointed out.
Right, but they don't accurately tell you what's going on.
But can we go back, like... So, could you say that the things, the same way that I'm able to hold this, it was able to harmonize with my body? But that candy bar, that lollipop wasn't. That's the same thing as saying whatever I consume and harmonizes with my body will make me stronger, and whatever if I were to take that lollipop, that doesn't harmonize with my body, so therefore it allows me to make me weaker.
You got it. You connected the dots.
But that's baffling. That is, like, I could feel my arm with that didn't move at all.
Right.
With that, I was a lot weaker. It just, and then you connected it back to like electromagnetic and.
Right, because that's the reality of what muscle testing is doing, checking electromagnetics. And with that, we can test, like most people, they'll check a liver. We got 20 different functions in the liver.
Okay.
I test every one of them on every person that comes in. Your liver assembles, your proteins are amino acid chains that fold, and all the folds, they all vibrate in different frequencies of vibration. You can take the same protein of a very simple life form and go up through the chain into plants and animals and man. Man has the highest amount of folds and the highest frequency of vibration of all life forms.
What does that mean?
It means that the frequency of the vibration of all these proteins in all your structure, proteins are structure, they're vibrating higher than, say, a shark or a dolphin or a mouse or anything like that. As you go higher up, it just becomes higher. And when you look at the reality of functional testing, we are testing electromagnetics through reflex points and double checking through individual muscles like that and challenging that with bugs and diseases and parasites and supplements and foods and all of these things to find out what specifically is going on with one individual. And we can do that through the airways at any distance you want. We had a while back, we had a girl, she was 5 years old, spent 5.5 days in a research hospital. She couldn't walk, couldn't be touched. She just laid in bed and cried. That research hospital was connected to a medical institution and one of the most prestigious medical school and one of the most prestigious medical institutions known in the world, known all over the world. 5.5 days of scans and tests, and they had no idea what's going on.
They couldn't touch her, as in what?
She hurt so much. You tried to touch her, you tried to move her. She just cried in pain.
Okay.
And she was miserable.
5 years old. Wow.
5 years old. One of her relatives begged the parents to work with us, so they got a hold of us. We had them fill out some paperwork, did an evaluation that afternoon. The next morning, she was out of bed. 3 days later, she's outside. 6 months down the road, she's healthier than she's ever been in her entire life. She was born with some defects. So she's more sensitive than others. But 6 months down the road, she's healthier than she's ever been in her life. And that girl was 1,000 miles away. I never saw her face to face. We're able to use the airways to test these electromagnetics on anyone with anything, anywhere. I have people overseas I'm working with, the same thing. We're working with somebody in Australia, and we're checking their house for toxic issues and mold. All of a sudden they get weak, like you did with the lollipop. I just say, stop, where are you? I'm just coming into the kitchen. What's around you? Have them start moving around, moving their hand around. No, it's right there. What's that? He goes, oh man, that's some toxic glow-in-the-dark hand soap that's been sitting there for 5 years that I've known I need to throw away, but I just haven't. I said, put it outside. Puts it outside, the rest of the kitchen's clean, and runs through the house. And goes, stop, where are you at? What are you doing? He goes, man, I can't believe this. You guys are legit. I just walked into my garage. I'm reaching for a can of toxic paint, and you stopped me. You guys are legit.
That's hard to believe.
I just showed you what I showed you.
But what are you focusing on then, like energy?
Essentially what I'm doing, I'm testing their different systems to see how things affect them. And environmental toxicity is a huge issue. It's really huge that if you go through lab tests, there's a bazillion tests for potential things that could be there. And we can just ask different questions to nail it down into what different kinds of things there are. And
so environmental toxicity also affects a lot of...
It's huge.
That plays on people as well, right? Like,
it's really big, and that's increased many-fold in the last few years.
How come?
They don't like you to talk about such things on the airways, but there's an agenda, and what's being released is not the way people think it is.
A can of paint.
Mm-hmm. Paint's pretty toxic, especially auto paint.
Even dish soap, you said.
Oh, you take something like Dawn detergent. If you want to know how toxic Dawn dish soap is, get a pint spray bottle. Mm-hmm. Fill it full of water, put about a tablespoon of Dawn dish soap in it, and go out and you find a wasp and you spray it in the air, and it's like you're duck hunting. It'll spiral out of the sky.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's one of the best, well, I won't say best, it's an extremely toxic insecticide that is nowhere near as toxic to us at that level as the things that people buy.
But doctor, I mean, we could talk about, there are plenty of household items today that affect us. Is it really possible to just get rid of them and start exchanging them for things that will benefit us? Because just like this can affect me and that can affect me, it's all over the place.
Exactly. Yes.
But can we really get to a place of stability?
Yes, we can. It takes understanding. And once you understand, then, I've got a list of things that I put in my instructions on what some of those are. A couple simple things. Anything that's corn related or feeds off of corn, throw it out of your diet. It's toxicity on steroids. It'll just destroy your health. When you look at the indigenous societies in Central and South America, mm-hmm. they grew corn on soil that they fed. Like you look at some of the, I don't know what the people groups were.
Is it that soil like from the Amazon? Like, we're talking like the Amazon forest. What I've heard is that the soil was so rich, or like plants weren't supposed to grow there, but the indigenous people that lived there knew how to feed the soil so well that that's what caused the plants to grow.
Right. That's what you just said is exactly true. And this is how they fed their soil. Mm. They used clay pots for their bathrooms. They fermented their feces in the clay pots. They partially burnt crop issues, wood and all that, to make something called biochar, which is very much like the charcoal that you buy, like the cowboy charcoal you buy to make barbecue with. Mm-hmm. Very much like that. Pulverize that, mix that in with the feces, urinated on it to give it nitrogen, and drug those pots out in their fields and mixed it in with the soil. 400 years after those people are gone, still some of the richest farmland in the world. Now, anybody that knows anything about a rainforest, it's the weakest, poorest soil we have on the earth. As soon as you remove the plants, nothing will grow. And there was that's how powerful soil management is.
Wow. And indigenous people were just growing things there mm-hmm. because, they knew how to do it.
Right. And they were growing clean corn. You can't get any clean corn. Monsanto and their company was bought out by Bayer and people like them. They bought up almost all of the seed supplies in the world, and they destroy all the natural seeds, so you can only get their GMO garbage.
Wow.
So you're stuck with things.
But they do that because it's a lot cheaper to grow the way that they do it, or
no, they understand there's a bunch of ways to control people. Food supply is one of them.
Oh, so they could actually produce enough for the population to keep on consuming it normally.
When you look at the proper organic soil management for crops, doctor like Carrie Reams, we only produce about 3% of what the land is capable of producing. When you feed the soil properly, you can get that to 50% or more. When you take the farmland in America, about 33% of the farmland's used for grazing land for cattle. Another 33% is used to grow grain for the cattle, the feedlots. That grain is completely toxic. That's 66% of our farmland that could be used to make healthy crops. But they've polluted it so much with the herbicides and pesticides. Those things are found over 10 feet deep in the soil.
Wow.
And you've got to mine it out of there to make the soil healthy again.
Mine it out?
Yeah. There's plants that will pull stuff out, like I believe it's comfrey. It'll mine 90, 100 feet down into the soil and bring nutrients out. And there's different things that are hyper accumulators that will accumulate those things. So you got to grow those crops and get rid of them, take them off the land. Of different things. It takes a lot to restore all that.
Wow. We might have to cut it off because my camera started heating up, but we have to do this again. Like it's very interesting. You said you had like very basic steps on like I was saying, there are things in our environment that we think we can't take out. What are some basic things we could start taking out of our diet? You said one was like anything that has to do with corn because obviously it's compromised already.
Yeah, wheat. 95% of the hard wheat crop is sprayed with Roundup 2 days to 3 weeks before it's harvested. No time to dispel anything.
You're taking everything we love.
Right. Dairy feeds off of corn. Sugar is highly toxic. You deal with and find a clean water. If somebody lives in a city, the water is toxic. It's just a given.
Then how do we find clean water?
One of the simplest things you can do is get a zero water filter. There's a pour-through pitcher. You look at all the independent studies. It's something we've tested for a long time. And then we run across independent studies. It's by far the best cleaning pour-through type of filter system that's out there. Berkey's a joke. Berkey is not good.
You said one? The one filter?
The zero ones, those are the best pour-through type. And if you're looking at a whole house system, Aquasana is the cheapest, best one that's out there.
Because even the type of water we shower with, it's compromised if we're living in a
through
city.
our skin and all that. We're mostly water. You got to have a clean water supply.
And I didn't know, but drinking water increases ATP levels. I didn't know that.
That's the basic way we make energy, drinking clean water. The highest energy water you can get is steam distilled water. It's called heavy water.
Wow. You really baffled me in a lot of ways, but any last thing you would like to say before we cut it off? We're going to have to do this again, obviously. Like, your book covers a wide range of topics to even how chronic illness and even Lyme disease starts affecting our brain. So anything you want to lead us off with?
Yeah. I'll just say this. You can if you have some chronic illness things that most of the people we see are people who've been to all the specialists, been all around, and they've siphoned all their funds off, and they don't really have much left.
Wow.
We have a higher degree of resolving those people back to full health than the people they went to see from the average Joe coming off the streets. Our results, there's a few in the world that claim to be close, but they're only getting people free of Lyme disease. We mark ours by restoring people back to full health. We give people their life back, and if somebody's really struggling with something, they can get a hold of us. Our website is healthfully.com. It's not Y-O-U, but the letter U, HEALTHFULLY, letter U.com. You can find us through that, get a hold of us. It doesn't matter where you're at. We can, in close to 40 years of working with people, I looked at this a while ago, and to me these things are humbling. They're not a thing of braggadocio, like I'm the best that there is out there.
Yeah.
God's just given us a gift that's not natural, okay? and that's the easiest way to say it. But in 40 years of working with people, every patient we've shared with the most prestigious specialist medical institutions in the world, we beat their diagnostics, we beat their care, and we beat their resolution in every single case for almost 40 years. You don't find natural doctors going to say that.
Wow.
That is extremely rare.
Thank you, Dr. Brad. Thank you. And I'll definitely have to do another episode with you. And if you guys stayed this long, I'll have Dr. Brad's links down in the description. Again, thank you again for making out the drive, and we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.